Hi there, BookTube. It's Roz. It's the 2nd of May, and I haven't yet done a TBR, Pile of Possibilities, what are my May plans video. My excuse is that I was a bit tied up with hosting People April, but here it is now, and I have to do this. It's a bit of a ritual for me. It kind of helps me pin down what I plan to read each month, and obviously, you know, just because I talk about them in a video doesn't mean I have to read them, but it does G me up a little in a positive way that I like, because I am a planner. Now, you will know that I tend to use reading events and readathons these days to sort of help me get to books that I've been wanting to read, meaning to read, thinking to read, been lurking, in my long-term wish list, as it were. And I'm doing that again this month. And I'm dipping into two kind of reading events and going the full hog on a third. Which are the ones that I'm dipping into? Well, one is Mental Health May. Now, having said that, the usual Mental Health May notes, Maya Marilyn Mendoza and Kim in the middle of the book march, are sort of doing it in a very low-key way this year. And their suggestion to us is to read a book that will make us happy, will improve perhaps our mental health, rather than maybe reading books about mental health. And I've got the perfect book for that. And that's Ghost Mountain by Ronan Hession. Now, I rather fell for the adorable Ronan Hession when I saw him interviewed by Sean of Sean Breed's Books on his a few times on his channel. What a lovely man. And I loved Leonard and Hungry Paul by him, but I haven't got around to his next two books yet. I know that this is going to be a joy to read for two reasons. One is the setup for it is brilliant. A mountain appears overnight just outside a sort of small Irish village, and plot and story ensues. The other reason I know it's going to be joyous is because I'm reading it with Priscilla of An Evening Reader and Sarah of Roadworthy. So I think we're going to have fun. So that's Mental Health May. The second reading event that I'm just sort of dipping my toe into is one that I would usually avoid, okay, because it's horror mayhem. And you know me, horror is not really my thing. And particularly, horror mayhem is encouraging you to read short stories, and that's not my thing either. But sometimes we have to be brave and read outside our comfort zone. And also, there's a book that I bought in 2024 and have been meaning to read ever since and not got around to, and that's Managing and Other Lies by Willow Heath. A book I want to read because Willow is one of BookTube's own, a lovely person, and also of the blog Books and Bow, and she brought out this book of kind of queer horror short stories, and although it's not my thing, I feel moved to give it a go. So that's that. Now, obviously, before I get to the reading event that I'm throwing myself in, all in, okay, which we'll come to in a minute, I'm also tied up in a year-long reading thing, which is Reading the Globe. And, as led by Katja, of Page Turns with Katja, and I'm sort of dipping into a couple of the strands and jointly hosting Reading the Globe Fiction with Katja. Now, this is our May book, and this is a bit of an anomaly, okay, because when I say I'm hosting the Reading the Globe Fiction strand, and that's all about reading fiction in translation each month, one book each month, this is the odd one out, because this is not fiction and it's not in translation. It's Two Trees Make a Forest by Jessica Lee. It's kind of memoir come travel book come meditation on language and memory and migration and Taiwan. And because half of Jessica Lee's heritage is Chinese Taiwanese, and then the other half is British. And yeah, it sounds like a gorgeous book, and there's an element of nature memoir about it. I'm really looking forward to both reading it and telling you more about it when I have. So the other Reading the Globe book that I'm going to read this month, I wasn't going to, and then I realised it was only 77 pages, and I thought, well, why not? And that's the Reading the Globe Classics choice for April. And it's called Baron Bagge. It's by Alexander Lernet-Holenia. He was an Austrian author. It was published in 1936. It's about an Austrian cavalryman in World War I who charges the Russian lines, the enemy, and kind of, instead of dying, ends up somehow in a mysterious other side. It's sort of dreamlike and a bit sort of mysterious. Sounds very intriguing, and I'm going to read it. Why not? Oh, translated. The translation I'm reading is by Clara and Richard Winston, because we should always name our translators, shouldn't we? So, which is the reading event that I'm throwing myself in, all guns blazing, or 2 feet first, or however you'd like to describe it? It's Misery May, because I love a miserable book. Well, a book that is emotionally moving, sad, about challenging or difficult things. That's meat and drink to me as a reader. And Misery May this year, the hosts, Scott of Gunpowder Fiction Plot and Gem of Books, are suggesting that we try and read books from, kind of miserable books from the 5 different continents. Well, the 5 continents that have books written in them, as opposed to Antarctica. And that's what I'm doing. Now, first of these I'm going to talk about is my book for Australasia. And this is Praiseworthy by Alexis Wright. Now, I've been kind of avoiding reading Praiseworthy, despite it being praised to the skies by people like, people whose opinion I respect, like Bob the Booker, I say. But I've avoided it because it's quite long and quite dense. Having said that, Lindy of Lindy's Magpie Reads suggested a kind of small group read of Praiseworthy, because there's a few of us out there that have been sort of meaning to read it and needed that little extra push. And, beautifully, it also ties in with Misery May. And I'm keen to read it because Alexis Wright is an Aboriginal Australian writer, and I've heard that it's a cry of outrage about oppression and greed and assimilation, and we shall see. But I'm optimistic about it. For Asia, I'm hoping to read 2 books, one from West Asia and one from East Asia. The West Asia book is this, The Book of Disappearance by Ibtisam Azem. It's translated by Sinan Antoom from the Arabic. It's on the International Booker long list. I don't think it didn't make it to the shortlist, but it kind of shouted to me from that shortlist, because it's she's a Palestinian author, and the setup for this book is that overnight all the Palestinians disappear from their homeland, and what transpires from that. Sounds interesting. I'm buddy reading it with Ian Powell, who's a commenter and brilliant buddy reader, and we'll see. My book from the other end of Asia is this, River East, River West. This is historical fiction set in Shanghai. Well, I say historical fiction, it's actually set in 2007 and 1985. And Lescure is sort of half her family are Chinese, the other half are French. She grew up between France and China, so I could have picked it for Europe, but because it's set in Shanghai, it seems to sort of fit as an Asia choice, doesn't it? And and she now lives in the USA, so it could have been a North America choice. But it's a book about relationships that cross national and cultural and language divides. And so about class and race and family love, romantic love, moving, and I'm looking forward to it. It was on last year's Women's Prize for Fiction shortlist and was like the last book from that shortlist that I really wanted to read. There was one that I wasn't really interested in, but I've read all the rest and this is the last one. So Misery May is a good reason to now get to it. Another continent, South America. And my book for that is Selva Almada's The Wind That Lays Waste, translated by Chris Andrews. Now, for Jem's sort of recommendation video for Misery May, I recommended Brickmakers by Selva Almada. And this is another book in her sort of loose thematic trilogy about Argentinian men, masculinity. Her books are short, kind of quite poetic prose, but always quite about sort of quite difficult, I suppose, emotions and subject matter. So I'm really glad to have this excuse to get around to reading this one, having loved the other two books in the trilogy. Where does that get us? Oh, Central and North America. And this is my book for Central and North America. It's The Dream Hotel by Leila Lalami. It was on the long list for the Women's Prize for Fiction this year. Didn't make it through to the shortlist, but it's one of the books that lots of people have said they felt that it should have done, and it certainly spoke to me because, now, interestingly, Leila Lalami was born in Morocco, and it could have been an Africa choice, couldn't it? But it's not, because it's set in California and she now lives in the States, and it sort of feels like, in a sense, a more American book. It's dystopian. It's about a woman who is caught up by an AI security system that identifies her as a potential risk of criminal violence and detains her. Sounds tense, interesting, and definitely fits the bill for misery, doesn't it? So, what are my African choices? Two, I hope, and I hope to get both of them. Certainly we'll get to one of them. And one of those is My Friends by Hisham Matar. Came out in 2024. Matar is a British Libyan, and it's a book about three Libyan friends living in London, but events back in Libya, Libyan politics, the Libyan regime sort of kind of still continue to sort of shape their lives, I guess, even though we're following them between the 1980s and 2011 in exile. And I've been meaning to read it ever since it came out, so, you know. Now, my other African choice is one that I've been meaning to read even longer, and that's The Girl with the Louding Voice by Aube Dare. It's a Nigerian author. I think she's now based in the UK. The sequel to The Girl with the Louding Voice kind of came out a few months ago, and that made me realise that, you know, how long I've been meaning to read it. I think it came out in 2020. It fits the misery bill nicely, because it's about a teenage girl in a small Nigerian village who's kind of sold into like a kind of a forced marriage. And but I gather that there's also a degree of hopefulness about the book, because the teenage first person narrator is a girl of great sort of determination. So for Europe, I'm going for more of a long slow read. Something I've already started on audio, but I'm determined to finish, and I'm going to use Misery May as a reason to finish it. And that's A Place of Greater Safety by Hilary Mantel. Now, Mantel died, she's a British author, she died in 2022. And ever since then, I've been trying to sort of get to some of her backlist, because she's one of my favourite authors, or her Wolf Hall trilogy is one of my sort of all-time favourite historical fiction series. And A Place of Greater Safety is about the French Revolution, and it follows sort of three characters, who are real people, but this is fictionalized: Danton, Robespierre, and Desmoulins, and through their lives, and then as the revolution sort of descends into what we now call the Terror. So, misery appropriate, I think. My other Europe choice for Misery May is Whalefall by Elizabeth O'Connor. Now, this is bang up to date. It came out in 2024. It's a debut novel. It's set in 1938, so historical fiction again, in fact. It's set on an island off the coast of Wales, and it's got, again, a teenage protagonist who is wanted to escape from the sort of the limitations of living on the island with the family, and two anthropologists turn up, and a whale that is beached and dies on a beach on the island. Who knows what it will bring? I understand it's moving and moving and reflective. So we shall see. That's my plans. I've got a couple of long, slow reads on the go, as you know. The Odyssey is one, and Finnegans Wake is the other. Both very enjoyable, not miserable, but fun. And I'm going to start. Finally, my non-fiction sort of choice for the month is I'm going to start an African history of Africa. I'm sort of taking part in Historathon this year, and the second quarter of the year we're to read things between 500 and 1500, and an African history for Africa starts in prehistory, but by chapter 4 we're into the sort of 500 to 1500 period, so it's I'm going to get it underway, but I certainly won't be planning on finishing it in May. There we go. Those are my plans. I expect I'll get sucked into some other things as well. I've reserved Days of Light by Megan Hunter from the library, but who knows if it'll reach me in May or not. Do tell me about your plans too, miserable or otherwise, and have a brilliant May.